welcome to this week's episode of Masterpiece Movie Theater. We're going to be discussing the 1986 film written and directed by Mike Marvin. That is The Wraith. Here's the DVD cover. Try to get the light on it. There we go. The front and the back. There you go. So this is what we see the Wraith himself look like. We're going to get into that later. But just so you know what I'm talking about, some reference right there. So let's get into the cast, okay? We have Charlie Sheen as Jake and Nick Cassavetes as Packard Walsh. Sherilyn Fenn as Carrie. Randy Quaid as the Sheriff Loomis. Matthew Berry, not Matthew Perry, Matthew Berry as Billy Hankins. David Sherrill, I have to read it here. Sorry, it's a longer list of people to memorize, but it's the main cast. David Sherrill as Skank, Jimmy Bozian as Gutter Boy, the legendary Clint Howard as Rughead, Griffin O'Neill, as Augie, and Chris Nash as Minty. So, some interesting tidbits about this movie. So, for 1986, it was actually shot in 27 days, which is rather short for a film back then. But even more interesting is the fact that Charlie Sheen was only on set for 1 day. That was it. You watch this film with that nugget of knowledge and you realize how movies are made, and it's just a really cool tidbit. Everything that he shot, all the screen time, 1 day. And that was because he was on the tight schedule for Platoon, which he was also filming. I'm not sure of the actual film times, if he took a break from Platoon to go do that, or if he had to get to Platoon or whatever. So, there's that. Let's get into your spoiler alert. If you'd like to go watch the movie, you can go on Tubi. Personally, I think you should own this if you have a DVD collection. All right? Go on Tubi, watch it, or anything else, anywhere else you can stream. I think if you have Stars through, which I think you can go through other apps with that. It's also on there as well. So go ahead and watch that. Come back. If not, stick with me and let's get to it. When we open up the film, it's a night sky over Arizona, deserty area. We see some shooting stars and then orbs of light come down from different directions, and they're going all over. They're burning through road signs and destroying billboards of Sheriff Loomis, and they're going through power lines, and energy is crackling, and all of these orbs meet up at a crossroads, and bang, they come together and they make the Turbo Interceptor, one of the coolest cars you'll ever see in any film. And after the 1986 CGI version showing you that car, you see it on the road with the Wraith, who again looks just like this, standing outside of it. So then it opens up to the next shot, which is where we meet all of the road pirates. Packard Walsh, as I described, and all of the other guys from Skink, Gutter Boy, Rughead, Augie, and Minty, as they drive a couple off the road. They make them race for pink slips. They hold the girlfriend hostage. The Packard cheats to win. They take the car, leave them to walk on the back Arizona roads. And then we get to more of the opening of the film. This shot is really cool because it's a road they keep going back to throughout the movie, and it's Charlie Sheen's Jake coming down, and it's like a motorbike, street legal style bike that he has, and he's coming down, and not only is it wavy because of the heat, but the road itself is actually wavy as it comes down like a mild hill. And he pulls up and he's talking to Sherilyn Fenn's Carrie. As they're talking and he's asking for directions, she's going to give him a ride, or he's going to give her a ride. That's when Packard shows up. So Packard takes her to the same place that Jake was asking to go. And the whole time, when she first gets into the car to when they're there, she's making it abundantly clear that they are not together. She doesn't want to be with him. She doesn't love him. And he's not only crazy about her, but he's actually crazy. And we see that in more of the scene later on as well. So as they're talking, Jake is already perched up, sitting there on a towel, on a rock, watching him. It's like a water hole with nice rocks, tons of people hanging out. And that's when we see Billy come up as well, asks if he can hang out next to Jake. He introduces himself. He sees a bunch of scars all over his back. Billy and Jake talk, and that's when we find out that Billy's brother, Jamie, used to date Carrie. Now, yeah, that's where we also find out that Jamie's brother is dead. Doesn't get into any specifics. Jake apologizes for even asking. Says he doesn't know. And we see Packard notice that Jake, and then because Jake is staring at Carrie, Billy's also kind of looking. And you see the psychotic look that Nick Cassavetes gives as his Packard Walsh. He's a really good psycho in this. And you see him flashback to Carrie and Jamie together when him and his goons, everyone except Rughead, not Rughead, okay, very important, burst into the room. They cover, it's dark in there, and they cover Carrie's face so they can't see anything. They take her out of there. You find out later on that she was just left. They get her out of there and they take her on, and dump her on some back road. And Packard cuts up Jamie, stabs him to death, and kills him. And again, all the goons were there, not Rughead. Comes back from the flashback, and Packard talks to his goons, goes off, talks to his goons. That's when Jake is talking to Carrie. We see more psychosis from Packard when he can't find Carrie. When he comes back, he's making a scene by yelling her name. So she says, come see me at work. I work at Big K's. Billy also works there. So then we switch to going over to Big K's. Really cool, retro burger joint. You know, they wear roller skates. They bring it up to your window. They hook it on. This one of those awesome, cool looking places. So it's clear that a shift goes by, and Billy and Carrie are leaving. And who shows up but Packard and all of the goons? And she gets out and gets in his car because he's making her. And it's very clear that she does anything that he says as far as just being in his presence. She doesn't do anything with him. She never hugs him, kisses him, touches him. But she stays near him, stays with him, stays away from other people because he's dangerous. And we also see in the scene that his goons are also afraid of him. Why? Because Billy's making fun of the goons a little bit, and Augie goes at him, and Packard pulls a knife on his friend. He holds him by his hair and pulls the knife on his friend and tells him to calm down. It's very clear that he's out of his mind crazy. But as it seems like Billy's going to get handled, the Turbo Interceptor shows up, and it pulls up, and it's revving its engine. And these guys are road pirates. They race. It's what they do. So they know it's a challenge, so they all get in and they follow the Interceptor. And Augie, in an angry mood, wants to prove himself. So he races the Interceptor, and it's really cool. Classic '80s scene. You got the classic '80s music. You've got the two cars going back and forth. And what happens is the Interceptor pulls ahead. It's gone, and Augie's trying to catch up to it, and he comes around a sharp corner. It's just sitting in the middle of the road, and he smashes into it. Huge explosion. He goes off the road down a small hill, and then the Interceptor reforms and drives off. Super cool. So now we see Loomis show up. He's questioning Packard and the rest of the goons. Carrie's broken up, but no one else seems to really care. Rughead cares. He's bewildered. He's terrified because he's just a small, nerdy scared little dude. Everyone else is just kind of calm, cool, almost seem like they don't care. Uh, but it's also kind of a facade because it's a sheriff and they're just being dicks to him, right? So they all leave after Loomis sees Augie's body. Now they pull. Because an important thing to do with the deaths is that they pull Augie's body out of the burning wreckage. And the body is completely intact, white, ice cold, and his eyes are missing. Really weird, really creepy, and somehow kind of oddly cool, right? Loomis tells them they don't even want to see what he just saw. They all go to leave. Carrie's all broken up. She asks Packard how he's not mad, and he just brings everything back to her. And like, what were you doing with Billy? He's my friend. I was getting a ride home, and he literally cuts his hand in just he's a psycho to show he doesn't feel any pain because of how much he loves her, and he's nuts. So then we see Packard's garage with everyone has their own cars. I don't think Gutter Boy has one. I think there's just one there for Skank. It's always Skank and Gutter Boy are always together. But we see all these cars that are in there, the cars that they've won, and they're all talking about different shady business venture stuff that they all have going on. And we see the main door opens and there's the Wraith with the interceptor behind him, and he's holding a huge shotgun at the Spas 12. And he slowly walks in and he just obliterates the entire place with this shotgun. He even holds it to Packard's face at one point. He turns it and destroys a bunch of stuff, and when the smoke clears, the Wraith is gone. But more importantly, before he starts shooting, Rughead looks at the helmet here, how you can see it like that, and it looks just like that throughout the whole movie. You can't really see in through it, and he sees a flash, and he thinks that it's Jamie. He knows that it looks like Jamie, and he freaks out about it. So after a couple more scenes with Loomis and Skank and Gutter Boy, everyone's back at Big K's, and they're trying to, they're talking about who the person in the interceptor can be. They're all just regular conversation. And when Packer gets in his car, there's a note. You don't see anybody who left the note or how it got there. There's just a note on a steering wheel, and it says, "I'll be at this location." So they all get in there and they go. And Loomis follows them as well because he's sitting there and he's watching. So they all get there, and then the turbo interceptor pulls up. And this is where Minty wants to race him now. And we see a really cool scene where Rughead tells him he's got to lift his hood so he can put the transmitter, the killer, right onto the engine. So if he tries to run, they can kill the engine. And when the back opens up and the whole engine is just vibrating, shaking, and it's got red energy all over it, and Rughead has no idea what he's looking at. It's really, really cool. The same type of race happens. This time, the cops are chasing them instead. So again, he pulls ahead. Minty comes around a tight corner. Boom. Hits him. Explosion. Car reforms. By the time the car reforms is when the sheriffs and the deputies all come around. So then they chase him. They chase him, and he goes through a roadblock, and he goes actually back up that same road, that cool little hilly road that keeps going up and up and up. But the turbo interceptor is really, really fast. So as it gets to the very top of it, right as it crests, boom! It turns into this huge cloud of energy just shooting off. It's a really cool scene, shot even for '86, even for something probably a little lower budget. And that's we see Loomis stops, gets out of his car, looks, and has no idea what he's looking at. So we go to that night, and Billy and Carrie, either that night or the next night. They never make it clear, but it's night. And again, Billy and Carrie are leaving Big K's, and excuse me, and they decide that Billy's not going to try and give her a ride because he likes being alive. And he leaves. She starts to walk, and Jake comes up on his motorbike. And he picks her up, he gives her a ride, and she's spotted by Skink and Gutter Boy, who try to chase them. They end up wrecking the car with Gutter Boy accidentally shoots the engine on the car. They flip it. They decide to not tell Packard what happened, and they just decide to walk. And he drops her off at home. They speak about how bad Packard is, and he tells her what she has to do to get away from him, and he invites her to a hangout spot the next day. They even kiss, and meanwhile this is all going on, Packard is watching from way down the street, and because again he's just always watching her. He's a psycho. I can't drive that point home enough. And so she goes in the house and he goes to drive away. Packard tries to follow him, and as soon as he gets out of the light of a street light and into some darkness, the three lights on the bike just move off in three separate directions. Wicked cool scene. So he stops and he has no idea what's going on. He's like, what the hell? So then he just drives on. He runs into Skink and Gutter Boy, asks them what happened to their car, and that's when the Interceptor shows up, knocks him into a graveyard. And he tries to get Skink to shoot him with the same shotgun that he had, and the Wraith just turns his head, looks at the barrel, and the end of the barrel explodes. And when they look back and the Wraith is gone, that's when Packard realizes that the headstone that he stopped in front of says Packard Walsh on it. So he tells them to get in the car, and they're all out of there. So we see Loomis haul Packard and all the goons in, and he's questioning them. He's talking about all this stuff. And meanwhile, we also then, because they're all there, Carrie is then free to go with Jake to the hangout spot the next day. It's just two of them. They talk about a bunch of stuff. She says she had a dream about him, and how that he reminds her of her ex-boyfriend. And when she's talking about that, we see Jake seem to recall the same murder that Packard did. So then they're talking, and you can tell that they're really into each other. They profess their feelings for each other, and then they even hook up. So back at the garage, Packard seems like he's in an oddly good mood. And as he's leaving, he's shaking hands with everybody and goofing around, and tells them he's got some stuff to take care of. He'll be back. He leaves, and then Rughead packs up his stuff, and he tells Skink and Gutter Boy that he's leaving, that everything is too crazy. People are dying. This is nuts. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And then he gets in his vehicle and he leaves. And as he's going down the long stretch of driveway, the Interceptor comes just plowing by, just right around him, and goes right up the driveway. The door is open, full speed. It shows Skink and Gutter Boy standing there. They scream. It goes in, and huge explosion. I mean, it turns this giant garage. It splinters the wood. Great explosion. A real practical explosion where they just blew it up one day, and it was great. Cool explosion. I love practical work and not just all CGI stuff. And this is in the days of practical explosions. Love it. Loomis shows up, and he's talking to Rughead, who's just standing there, and he tells him that Skink and Gutter Boy were inside, and that he thinks that the person who's driving the Interceptor is a Wraith, is a ghost, and that it's Jamie Hankins. That he knows that it's him. He saw his face. He's dead, but he's a ghost, and he's come back to kill him, and he's done. He's out of it. He wants nothing to do with any of it. Packard shows up at Big K's, and he tells Carrie that they're leaving, and he picks her up, puts her on his shoulder, tries to take her. Billy tries to stop him, beats the crap out of Billy, and takes off with her anyways. Billy actually gets up and yells at everybody else for letting it happen, because again, everyone fears him because he's insane. So as they're driving, they're talking, and she kind of just snaps and has enough, and questions him enough to actually figure out that it was in fact him that most likely killed Jamie, and he even confirms that it's, so she knows that it was him, and they pull over to the side of the road. She says she's not going with him. She's not any of that. He pulls his knife on her, and as he does that, the turbo interceptor pulls up, and obviously we get the race of the movie. We get the best, road pirate going against the interceptor, and again, the cops are in chase of this one, but except this time, Packard actually causes accidents with them. He causes accidents all over the place because they race for a while. But the difference in this one is, instead of him pulling ahead and then waiting in the road, he pulls way ahead, turns around, and drives straight back at him, and they collide head to head, and you see the car go off down a hill, and by the time Loomis shows up, Packard is hanging out of the smoking wreckage, eyes gone, cold and white. It's creepy, but still kind of cool. And the explosion is even so loud that even Carrie, as far away as she was, hears the whole thing happen. So Carrie shows up at home, and that's when we see the interceptor pull up outside of there, and the door opens on its side. Not I love how doors open like that. And the Wraith gets out. He's in that suit, and it's all light starts coming from his body. It startles her and everything, and it's Jake underneath it. And she's like, Jake, and he says, you know who I am. And then she knows that he's Jamie, and he tells her how this look now is as close as he could get to how he used to look, and that they're supposed to be together, they're destined to be together, and he was allowed to come back and do that. He tells her to pack because they're leaving, but he's got one more thing to do. And he gets back into the interceptor, and he leaves. And he goes to Big K's. And this, out of all the cool scenes, out of all the, any montage-y stuff, out of the races, out of all the stuff, this is the best scene in the movie. He shows up to Big K's. Billy's closing up. He's all by himself. He pulls a bat out because he thinks maybe it's Packard again there to beat him up. And it's not. It's Jake. And he tells him that his business there is done, and he's got to leave, but he's got one more thing for him. And he gives him the keys to the interceptor. And as he goes, tells him it's the only one in existence. And he goes to leave, and Billy says, who are you, bro? And he says, you said it, Billy. And he leaves. You then see Jake on his motorbike, and right outside of Big K's, and he yells to me and says, hey, Billy, the instructions are in the glove compartment. And he takes off down the road. And Billy comes chasing him out, and he's telling him, come back, bro, because he just says bro all the time. That's just how he talks. And he looks at the car, and then, he's in disbelief that he just gave him that car. And then he looks back down the road, and he starts yelling to Jake. This is the best moment of the movie. He yells to Jake, and he's like, it can't be. And he yells Jake twice, and then yells Jamie, because he knows it's his brother. And it's hard. If you don't, I know this is a 1986 sci-fi movie with ghosts and cars, and so if it doesn't choke you up, you don't have a soul. It's the best part of the whole movie. I choke up every time. I've seen this movie dozens and dozens of times. I choke up every single time. So we come to the end of the film. He goes back on his motorbike. He picks up Carrie, goes back up that cool road, the little hilly road. Sheriff Loomis is there watching them, and he knows that it's over. He sees them leaving, but that he knows what happened, but he can't prove it. He doesn't know how it's happening, but he even just kind of shrugs his shoulders and he's like, "Oh, whatever." And then music plays, and the movie's over. Again, a great sci-fi mid '80s movie. It, go check it out wherever you can watch it, and join me in 2 weeks where we're going to be not watching, we're going to be going over the very underground archive collection classic. Check this out. Airborne. See you then.
Bye, nerd.